Welcome back for day 2 of 10 solos in 10 days. Today we're going to look at some solos from Dream the Dead by Caligula's Horse, a band I really love. In fact, I interviewed Sam Vallen, the guitarist slash composer, on this channel about a year and a half ago. You can watch that if you want to kind of get a little more insight into how he writes his solos and his music. There's 3 solos in this song, and I covered all 3 of them, but I'm just going to talk about the first solo as well as the second half of the last solo in this lesson because they kind of relate to each other from a technical perspective. So let's get into it. I'm in standard tuning for these solos. If you want to play the rhythm parts, you'll need a 7-string in drop A, but since these solos don't use the low string, we can just do it on a standard tuned 6-string guitar. The chord progression underneath these solos is quite simple, but it's in a really weird key for guitar. So we're in the key of E flat minor. So our first chord is a 6th chord, B major 7, although I guess technically in this key it's C flat major 7. So that holds for 2 bars, and then we go to the 1 chord, D flat minor, into the 7 chord, D flat, back to 1, and then the 7 chord again, this time in first inversion, so D flat over F, the 3rd in the bass. And then to end this first solo, we have A flat minor 6 to E flat major with G in the bass. And that's what's called a Picardy third. That's when you're playing in a minor key, and you end on a major 1 chord. And this is incredibly uncommon in this kind of music. You'll see this a lot more in older classical music, but it's very interesting here and kind of gives you this uplifting feeling to hit that major chord underneath. And borrowing from our parallel major key when you're in a minor key is very common. So you can borrow chords from E flat major when you're in the key of E flat minor, for example. So that's the chord progression. So let's take a look at the first solo. The solo starts like this. All right, out of E flat minor. There's some cool bending ideas happening here. So you have the unison bend, and then this cool sliding bend. Bend, slide, bend, and back. And then we have this. So he's hanging out a lot on the 9th of the key, or the 2nd of the key, which would be F in this case. Really cool sound. Over the E flat minor, that's your 9th, right? And if you're playing over the B major, or the C flat major, that's our sharp 11. So a really cool extension over most of the chords that are happening here. And then we get into the shreddy bits, which happen for the rest of this first solo. You start with this major 7 arpeggio. Once again, landing on the 9th of the key. This is an arpeggio I use myself a lot. Some scale runs at the top there. A classic major 7 shape. One of the first ones I teach if I'm teaching 7th arpeggios. Then we do some fast 3-note per string scale runs. Some big stretch here in the middle. But this is once again all right out of E flat minor. And then we get into the really fun part, and this is going to kind of relate to the last solo I'm going to talk about as well. We slide up to here and play this. And this is all right out of G sharp minor pentatonic or A flat minor pentatonic. I think in this case, I'd probably think of it more as being B major pentatonic, which has all the same notes as your G sharp minor pentatonic, because we're kind of living over that B chord in a lot of this. It's pretty interesting to not use E flat minor pentatonic since that's the key we're in, but this works really well here. And essentially what he's doing is playing these 4-note per string pentatonics. So normally you play a pentatonic 2 notes per string, right? But if I stretch out and play a 3rd note with my left hand, and play a 4th note with a tap, I can skip over the next string. So instead of going, I can go, skip a string again. So now I've played the entire minor pentatonic scale with 4 notes per string, skipping strings. It'd be impossible to play the pentatonic scale any faster than that, especially 2 notes per string. I think I heard this probably first with Guthrie Govan at the end of Wonderful Slippery Thing. He does that exact lick in the key of B minor. So that's what's happening here. But Sam starts one position lower in the pentatonic, slides up to that position, then works his way up. Then he adds in the 9th from this pentatonic here, B flat. Does this double tap. So you're tapping with your middle finger, then ring, back to the middle. If you've never done that kind of thing, it's a little weird and takes some time, but. Then bend. So that's over the A flat minor 6 chord. Plays that 6. Then lands on E flat when the E flat major chord hits. So this whole last part. And this is pretty tricky to play. It's essentially, especially on that last run, basically cram in all of the notes in the amount of time. It's hard to keep it clean. It's hard to do that kind of double tap note in there. The stretches are big. There's some jumps and stuff. So it takes a little bit of time to get used to doing this. But if you get this kind of lick down, it's these really big sounds that you might associate with like sweep picking, right? These jumps of huge octaves really quickly, but done in a smoother fashion with this tapping and the string skipping. So there's the first solo. I want to take a look at the end of the last solo and talk about how that part relates to what I just talked about. This is basically just an extended version of that same tapping lick we just looked at. We're going to start one box lower though here, and we're going to go up 2 sets of strings. So that's one position down in the pentatonic. This is all still coming from that A flat minor or G sharp minor pentatonic, depending on how you want to look at it. See that shape? You could even extend that higher. He doesn't here, but. Then we're going to slide up to the position we were just in. Go up 2 sets of strings and back. Then we're going to do just the left-hand part, then back up again. Basically end that lick how we did at the end of the first solo. So up to this point. Now, when I was listening to it, I wasn't actually hearing the tap on the G string on the way down at the end. It could have been that he meant to do it, and then in the course of actually playing it at this speed, it got missed. Whatever, I'm not sure exactly what was intended, but that's how I heard it anyway. This was really hard to record, though, especially because right after this tapping lick, you have to go into this fast picking lick, which is this Yngwie Malmsteen pattern, 6-note pattern. And he just takes it down through an E flat minor scale. Kind of classic shredding stuff. It's not too hard to do it on its own. I think in context is where it gets more difficult, though. Then it's into a bunch of pentatonic ideas. E flat minor pentatonic, although he does throw that 9th in there as well. There's a little bit of that slide vibrato in there. Right? Very cool. Really interesting lines here, too. Just cool ways of phrasing these particular notes, and then ending on that held chord that resolves to our E flat major. Very fun. You kind of have this add 9, E flat add 9 shape. Or the gent chord, this is basically the shape of the gent chord, and then resolve to the 3rd. Really fun way to end this solo. So you have all these difficult things sort of back to back. You have the tapping licks straight into the alternate picking, and then some of these weird pentatonic ideas, but it flows super well into the end of this solo, and it feels really climactic. So there you have it, a couple of solos from Dream the Dead by Caligula's Horse. Sam Vallen is an absolutely killer guitar player, and it was really fun to dig into these solos. Some of these ideas are really cool, especially that string skip tapping stuff. I do some of that myself. There's a big lick here at the end of my great Stereopticon solo that does it. But I will be back tomorrow for day 3 of 10 solos in 10 days. If you enjoyed this lesson, subscribe, hit the bell notification, like, comment, share, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Until then, stay proggy.